speaker here in India. I think he met some of you while he was here, and so we're particularly pleased that he's able to give up some time, his evening time, to sort of come in digitally and share a little bit more information on green capital and green financing. So without further ado, thank you very much for joining us this morning, and let me turn over to Chirag.
Thank you, Anamika, and a very good morning to everyone. At the outset, I would like to thank US Consulate for hosting this Clean Energy Finance Interaction, which is a very important and pertinent topic in the current time, especially after the COP21, where most of the countries, more than 190 countries, who have submitted their INDCs, which will become NDCs once the Paris Agreement is formally adopted. Use of finance policies and economic instruments are a very common mention in the INDCs. More than 120 countries have set conditional targets, either in full or partial, that say one or the other form of financial support for INDC implementation. In case of India, one of the INDC's goals on non-fossil fuel energy envisages 33% jump over the 2015 level, majority of which has to be clean energy. According to India's INDC estimates, investment of $2.5 trillion at the 2014 and 15 prices is required between now and 2030 for meeting these targets. This calls for swift mobilization of public and private funding, and which is the reason why we are having this discussion on clean energy finance and how to mobilize it. We have with us today two expert speakers to talk about one, clean power platform through innovative finance policy, Jeffrey Schub, Executive Director of the Coalition for Green Capital. And on the role of climate finance in clean energy deployment, we have Srinath Komarina, who is Executive Vice President for Responsible Banking, Yes Bank Limited. Couple of instructions for the attendees who are in the listen-only mode. You can type in your questions in the chat box, and we will try to take up those questions towards the end of the webinar. And there are a few panelists as well present in the room as well as online, and we'll have their inputs during the open discussion forum. So first topic for today's webinar is Clean Power Platform through Innovative Finance Policy, who is going to be presented by Jeffrey Schub, who is the Executive Director of Coalition for Green Capital, a non-profit based in Washington, D.C. that works at state, federal, and international levels to create clean energy finance initiatives or green banks. Jeff develops green bank opportunities and partnerships across the United States, managing engagements with various states. And he has advised Connecticut Green Bank on financing strategy and helped develop the business plan for the New York Green Bank. I will now hand it over to Jeff for his presentation. Jeff, you have roughly about 20 minutes to go through your slides. Then we'll move towards Srinath, who will present on the role of private investment in clean energy deployment. Jeff, over to you.
Great, thank you so much, Chirag, and thank you all for having me and letting me join you electronically, remotely from here in the United States. I'm calling in from New York City, but frankly, wish I was there. I really loved my time speaking with many different groups in Mumbai and Ahmedabad and in Delhi in December, and very happy to say that I'm actually going to be back in Delhi this coming April to continue work on the topic of green banks. So I'm really thrilled to have this opportunity to speak with you all this morning. You know, there's, I think the need for clean energy investment, the need for reduction of greenhouse gases was, you know, the situation was summarized very well by Chirag coming out of Paris. All these countries have made commitments. But I think underlying the basic premise of what we're trying to achieve in India and frankly throughout the developing world is finding a balance, finding a way to grow economies and reduce greenhouse gas emissions simultaneously. The paradigm that has existed throughout modern history around addressing climate change versus growing an economy is one that frankly is just, it's not palatable, it's not fair, and it's not a choice that any country should ever have to make going forward, and it's not a choice any country has to make going forward. The reduction in the cost of technologies and new clean energy solutions mean that a country can grow its economy and reduce its carbon emissions at the same time. And so therefore India's core power needs really should be driven by a set of constraints where power is cheap, power is clean, it's plentiful, and reliable. All four of these things can be achieved simultaneously. There really shouldn't be a need for trade-offs. It's not fair to ask for trade-offs. As we all know, capital is essential. Building a clean energy platform built around renewables and efficient use of energy requires a huge amount of upfront investment to pay for infrastructure. This ultimately looks like infrastructure investment. Currently, there is about $1 trillion annually flowing into fossil fuels, plus an additional $500 billion annually to subsidize fossil fuels. So that's about $1.5 trillion every year around the world flowing into the energy sector that needs to actually be reduced to avoid catastrophic climate change. Kind of conveniently, that number of 1.5 trillion is actually the annual amount of investment that the IEA, the International Energy Agency, estimates needs to go into clean energy technologies every single year to hit a 2 degrees centigrade target, to not exceed that level of temperature increase around the world. So effectively, every single dollar that is flowing into the investment in fossil fuels around the world needs to change direction and head towards clean energy immediately and permanently, and stay that way every single year, at least for the next 25 years or so. To give you a sense of this, the order of magnitude of what has to be done, and that's about, that 1.5 trillion is about 4 times more than was invested several years ago, and is the current level of investment. Thankfully, because of the changing landscape of technology costs, actually achieving this kind of an energy future and drawing this kind of investment is primarily a political and a business problem. It's not a technology problem. Even 5 years ago or 10 years ago, the primary constraint to actually being able to achieve this future in which economies could grow at the same time as reducing climate changing emissions, it was a technology problem because the technology was simply too expensive. But as this chart shows, this is the price of a solar on a normalized basis compared to oil and gas priced to American commodity markets. We see that those fossil fuels have effectively stayed the same price, if not gone up a small amount, while the price of solar has fallen on the order of 90% in a matter of 6 years. And so we know that technology really isn't the problem anymore. It's about developing business models, policy solutions, regulatory schemes that actually allow these technologies to be deployed rapidly and that actually attract investment. A really helpful corollary to understand what this kind of growth might look like in a clean energy future is mobile communications. In India, over the course of 15 years, went from about 0 mobile phones to 1 billion mobile subscribers. And this is actually a really helpful model to think about a clean energy platform because it's a distributed technology. Part of the power of mobile is that it's distributed. It's not run by a centralized a traditional centralized platform, and so we can imagine a clean energy future in which distributed solutions actually empower end users to take control over how they use and consume energy. I know you're all familiar with the set of goals and objectives that India has set for itself, both through the INDC in the COP21 process, as well as independent objectives, but the most pressing and immediate is 175 gigawatts of renewable capacity installed by the end of 2022. So that is a very sizable target that is not that far off. The current electricity mix in India, again, I'm sure you're all familiar with this, 69% of generation capacity in India is from fossil fuels, mostly coal. This is actually somewhat of a misleading lens to look at this through. Installed capacity understates how much of the actual generation comes from fossil fuels, which I think is 80%, if not higher, of the actual megawatt hours or gigawatt hours come from coal. So moving to a an electric system that is primarily powered by renewables requires a really massive shift. India has made tremendous strides already in terms of its renewable generation installed, growing from about 3 megawatts to 33 megawatts in only 15 years. This is about 18% annual growth, which is really sizable. But if you actually extrapolate out to 2022 and see what kind of trajectory growth will have to be on to get from today to that target, we see this pretty significant kink in the growth rate where annual growth has to increase from 18% to 23% annually. This is not an easy shift. If you want to look into solar very specifically, solar capacity has boomed to an unbelievable degree in just the last 5 years, growing 221% per year. This chart shows the cumulative solar, basically going from no solar to 3.5 gigawatts installed in only 5 years. But again, if we extrapolate out to how much solar is going to be required to get to this 2022 target, we see we need a 30x increase in the amount of solar in only 7 years. These are just astounding targets to aim for that will require huge amounts of capital. The Indian government has estimated that to achieve this renewable target will require $200 billion in total investment by 2022, and something between $1.5 and $2.2 billion by 2040 for both renewable and efficiency investments. So this it's a fairly staggering amount of investment that has to be drawn in continuously for a very long period of time. And we believe that green bank institutions can play a really central role in attracting and deploying this kind of investment. And so to give a basic definition, a green bank is a public or a quasi-public financing authority that leverages private capital with limited public dollars. So a green bank is a purpose-built institution created by government that is capitalized with public dollars that uses those dollars to offer innovative financing structures in partnership with the private sector. So public-private partnerships that are specifically designed to use public dollars in efficient ways that leverage as much private investment as possible per public dollar. I'll go into some examples of what that actually looks like, but a common structure could be co-lending into a clean energy project or providing a credit enhancement to a private bank. These techniques are actually not all that novel, but they're new in their application to clean energy markets, and they play a really critical role in both attracting private investment that would have sat on the sidelines otherwise and lowering that cost of capital and extending the term of financing offered. But green banks don't actually just focus on attracting that capital, but they also think about how to deploy that capital. Part of the challenge that we see all over the U.S., even in states that actually have pretty strong clean energy markets, is that there's a really strong disconnect between the providers of capital and companies and developers looking to build projects, where a developer will say there isn't enough money, that there's no financing available, and the capital provider will say simultaneously that there is plenty of capital available, capital is the problem, there is just no demand. It's hard to imagine that these two things can be thought simultaneously, but they really are, because there's a disconnect in the market where the capital that's being provided isn't offered in a form and in a manner and at a cost that's actually usable and effective for delivery into the market. And so green banks help bridge this divide by enabling market development through better information sharing, through better product design, through online platforms that allow market actors to understand what their clean energy technology solutions actually are. And in the U.S., these techniques have been deployed at the state level. In countries around the world, there are national green banks, and we'll talk through some of these examples. These institutions are really critical for the reasons that I just said. And you know, this top list up here, looking at the kinds of investors that can be brought in through a green bank, it's not just domestic capital. In India, a green bank could be focused specifically on bringing in foreign sources of capital, like investment from development finance institutions, foreign governments, and the Green Climate Fund. Part of the challenge that I think a lot of developing countries are going to face coming out of Paris is that there are all these pots of money around the world from NGOs, Green Climate Fund, that are looking to put money into markets like India, but how does that money actually get into the clean energy market? What is the institution that's going to proactively seek out that investment, coordinate it, package it up with other private capital, domestic capital, and then deploy it out into a market in a coherent fashion through a useful financing product, building relationships with developers so that that capital actually can get deployed efficiently and quickly out into the market. And so the way I think about a green bank is almost as a funnel that is able to bring in all sorts of foreign and domestic capital and actually coordinate it and package it and align it so that it can actually get out into the market. And I also want to point out here, green bonds. I know green bonds are increasingly common tool for raising capital around the world and being used in India today. Green banks, in addition to taking money and attracting investment from the investors listed here, green banks can also issue green bonds as a specific mechanism for bringing in capital. So I like to think of green banks, again, as a funnel for drawing in all sorts of capital that's looking to get into a market like India. Here are three simple structures of how green banks might attract private investment. These are a little bit stylized, but they actually represent the majority of green bank investments. One is where a green bank provides a credit enhancement. So you can imagine a green bank using cash from its balance sheet to offer a loan loss reserve to a lender that would enable that lender to invest into a project that it otherwise wouldn't invest in, or allow that investor to lower their interest rates or extend the term of their financing to make that project economically viable. For a co-investment, you can imagine a private investor might only be willing to put in 40% or 50% of a project cost. The green bank could provide the other portion of the capital necessary to actually get the project built. And in a warehousing structure, this is particularly important for smaller distributed technologies like energy efficiency, where the projects themselves are relatively small. They might be technologically varied. The credit might vary from projects. They could be geographically dispersed. All of these attributes that actually make it very hard and not cost effective for larger private investors to go out and actually originate those deals and make those loans. A green bank could take on that role, act as originator for these deals that are perfectly economically viable but just aren't attractive to certain kinds of lenders. The green bank could aggregate and pool all those projects and then sell that portfolio of projects to a private investor once it reaches a scale and a diversification that is actually attractive to a private lender. This kind of a structure that's similar to securitizations has actually been really effective in several markets. As I've mentioned a few times already, a key attribute of what green banks can accomplish is lowering the cost of financing. And I think it's intuitive why this is important, but it's worth saying that the cost of financing for a renewable energy project directly affects the price of that electricity coming off of that that project. Therefore, a lower cost of capital makes renewable energy more cost competitive with fossil fuels. If the objective here is to make renewable energy cheap enough to compete with electricity coming from a coal plant, then the cost of capital is a really great lever and a powerful lever for actually achieving that cost competitiveness. This chart is actually a new study has come out, an updated study was released. This is slightly out of date, but the effect is still the same, showing how lowering the cost of financing affects the price of electricity as measured by levelized cost of energy here on this chart. And as you can see for solar, lowering the cost of electricity, the cost of capital from by about 3.8 percentage points actually lowers that price of solar by 25%. So if you're able to lower the borrowing cost for financing a solar project by about 3.5 points, you are effectively lowering the price of that electricity by 25%. That's incredibly powerful. So it's, again, the exact equivalent of lowering the cost of the solar panel by a quarter you're able to achieve just by lowering the cost of capital. And this chart, taken from analysis we did for the Connecticut Green Bank several years ago, is fairly intuitive and just shows that as the cost of installing solar falls, which is on the vertical axis, or as the amount of green bank capital in the investment structure increases, the offtake price declines dramatically. And here we've actually assumed a fairly low cost of capital for a green bank. I think this is modeled on the green bank capital being in the form of debt offered at 2%. The precise cost of capital, frankly, doesn't matter all that much. Just understanding that the green bank's capital is able to lower the overall cost of capital to the project. And kind of intuitively, what this is able to achieve is that the pool of projects that are economically viable increases because of the lower cost of capital. If economic viability is defined as a project where the price of solar is lower than the price of power coming from the grid, which is mostly from fossil fuels, then lowering that price of solar power with a lower cost of capital means more projects can get done. It's not all that complicated, but it's worth seeing that this is a really powerful effect and directly goes to expanding the market for renewable energy. And a really key attribute of why this is important, especially in India, is that decreasing the cost of clean energy and making it accessible by reducing the upfront cost can really overcome a lot of the barriers to for those that are not even connected to the grid. About 20% of the population in India is not connected to the grid and lacks electricity. 33% lack clean cooking fuel. Capital and new business models are needed to address these distributed energy markets. Green banks are purpose-built for this kind of innovative, novel solutions that require market coordination and innovative finance structures. Just a couple of examples that I'll go through fairly quickly here. The Connecticut Green Bank, which was the first green bank created in the United States in 2011, created a unique public-private financing structure to finance residential rooftop solar using a lease model, where the green bank provided, using its public capital, provided subordinated debt and a loan loss reserve and an equity investment, while private investors provided the senior debt and tax equity investment to absorb the federal tax credit benefits that come from residential solar. And together they were able to create a solar lease fund that could be used by any local installer in the state of Connecticut that would then allow them to offer solar to customers with $0 of upfront cost, as opposed to paying $30,000 to $40,000 in cash out of pocket. Not surprisingly, if you try to ask people to pay $30,000 to $40,000 out of pocket, you don't get a lot of customers. But if instead you're offering them no money down, and over time the effective cost of electricity is lower than what they would be paying to the utility, that's actually a very easy sell, and you can reach many, many more customers. And so what's actually happened in Connecticut is the amount of installed capacity has skyrocketed since the Green Bank was created. As you can see here, the Green Bank was launched in 2011. In 2015, by 2015, the annual amount of installed capacity has increased by about 30x compared to where the market was prior to the Green Bank being created. And what I think is also really fascinating about this chart here is the bars, the total height of the bar represents the total cost of installation on a dollars per watt basis for the residential market. And as you can see intuitively, that the bars are going down, the cost of installation is falling. But at the same time, the green segment of the bar, which represents the state's level of subsidy, was also declining, because the state figured, well, the cost of the technology is going down, we should subsidize it less. The Connecticut Green Bank has really wound down the subsidy. It's declined by about 80% or so since the Green Bank was created. But you can see that's actually had no effect on market growth. And in fact, in the last year, in 2015, you can see that the gray portion of the bar, which represents the actual net cost to the customer after the subsidy, has gone up. In 2015, the net cost of solar to customers actually went up compared to 2014, but that had no effect on the growth of the market because customers aren't being asked to pay money out of pocket. Instead, they have a financing solution with no money down. This really shows the power of financing and why subsidies can be ramped down as you increase the amount of financing in the system. One other example that I think is a really effective method for aggregating small efficiency projects is a technique used by not just the Connecticut Green Bank but others to offer loans directly for small, medium businesses that are trying to do energy upgrades and originate and underwrite those loans themselves, bundle them into a portfolio, and then sell them to private investors afterwards. This particular structure actually uses a really innovative financing tool called PACE, which stands for Property Assessed Clean Energy, which is a structure that's spreading across the United States in which the financing for a building upgrade is actually repaid on a person's property tax. So a homeowner or a building owner would receive a loan, but then the collection for that loan is done directly on the property tax and it's treated as a lien on the building as a method of creating much greater security for repayment and therefore attracting many more private investors. This is a really clever technique that I'd be really interested to understand if such a method could be done in India. And then finally, in addition to financing, there's a lot of content on the slide, but it's all to demonstrate what it actually takes to build a clean energy market where end customers understand what their opportunities are for adopting clean energy, understand what the financing options are, understand what the economic value proposition is, and all of the activities that have to go between, that have to occur and be enabled between capital supply and project demand. This is particularly important for distributed technologies. All of this activity really has to occur. You just can't build a robust market without these activities because time and time again we've seen that customers just simply aren't comfortable or used to shopping for energy. The way that people might shop for any other goods online where you compare prices, you go to different websites, that experience just has not ever existed in the energy space, and so there's a lot of work that has to be done to get customers comfortable, quote-unquote, shopping for energy in a similar way. Here's some numbers from what the Connecticut Green Bank has achieved. As I said, they're the first green bank in the country in the U.S. Just as a baseline from 2000 to 2011, under the prior subsidy-based policy regime, Connecticut was stimulating about $32 million per year in clean energy investment, where half of that money was coming from the private sector. In 2015, last year, in a single year, the Green Bank stimulated $365 million of investment into clean energy technology deployment, where now 80% of those dollars were coming from the private sector. In this year, that number is expected to increase to $670 million in a single year, where 90% of the capital is coming from the private sector. This gives you a sense of what market growth really looks like when there's capital flowing through from both the public and private sector. And to put this in scale, the global green bank investment from the existing green banks is expected to be about $40 billion in the next 5 years. This is a map of what the green bank landscape looks like around the country, around the world. The UK Green Investment Bank was the first national green bank created in 2011. Australia has a national green bank called the Clean Energy Finance Corporation. Malaysia has the Green Tech Financing Scheme. Japan. There are a number of new institutions growing around the world that are specifically using public dollars to leverage more private investment in the deployment of clean energy technologies. And in the U.S., this is a set of the states that we're working in. The green states have operating green banks. The gray ones are ones that are actively engaged in exploring the creation of green banks. And we're very happy to be helping them with those efforts. And then finally, to wrap up, I just wanted to kind of share some exciting news on our end. With the development and growth of green banks around the world, there's been an increasing need for collaboration and information sharing and networking among green banks. And our organization has been asked by a number of those green banks to build for them a new institution, a new entity that's called the Global Green Bank Network. This initiative was announced in Paris at COP21 in December, and we are well on our way towards building this institution, which will really serve three purposes. It will gather best practices and information, and will be a centralized global platform for innovative financing practices and green bank operations that anybody can have access to. It will be an open platform. It will also serve to attract capital from investors and development finance institutions that are eager to find ways to invest in markets in and through green banks. And then last but not least, the Green Bank Network will directly help governments interested in creating these institutions. And I can follow up with more detail, but we're actually hosting a webinar on April 12th to provide more detail and more information about the Green Bank Network, and we're going to do some spotlights from the actual executive leadership teams from several of the green banks that are joining the network. And so with that, I really thank you so much for your attention, and look forward to taking some questions at the end of the session.
Thank you, Jeff. We've got a few questions for you, but we'll take it up at the end of the session. Now we'll quickly move on to the next topic of the webinar, which is the role of private finance for deployment of clean energy. We have with us Srinath, who is Executive Vice President, Responsible Banking, Yes Bank Limited, who has more than a decade of experience in climate change and sustainability services, and is currently working in the exciting and emerging field of sustainable finance. He is currently engaging with various stakeholder groups and creating long-term sustainable business models which are capable of achieving financial, social, and environmental returns, thus creating a shared value. I would just take a moment to thank Yes Bank for being the knowledge partner for this particular webinar, and Srinath, it's over to you.
Thanks, Chirag, and thanks, Jeff, for the wonderful presentation on the green banks. So technically, even though Yes Bank is not a officially green bank as such, but whatever examples that you have shared, I'm proud to share that we do replicate some of the best practices that you have shared. So probably in the next 10-15 minutes, I'll just give a quickly broad overview of the role of climate finance in the clean energy deployment. Yeah, if you see the clean energy statistics, is a very broad overview of the power scenario in India as of March 2015. So if you see the total current installed capacity is 263.66 gigawatts, out of which the renewable energy capacity is close to 13.6%. That's close to only 34.35 gigawatts. But having said that, if you see the growth of renewable energy from 2007 to 2015, we see a very steady increase from 9,200 megawatts to close to 34,000 megawatts over the last 8 years. So obviously India is on a very high growth trajectory. So the need of renewable energy will be increasing year on year. So for a quick snapshot of the clean energy statistics and the potential in India. So if you see the capacities or the estimated potential versus the targets, it's a very brief overview that we're talking about here. The figures are as of January 2016. So this is a breakdown of what Jeff has already mentioned, the 175 gigawatt target which the government has publicly announced. So in that, out of the 175 gigawatts, the current installed capacity as of Jan is only 39,000 megawatts. I mean, so with this ambitious target, look, what India is looking at is looking at one of the world's largest green energy producers. So when we're talking about the world's largest green energy producer, we're looking at an investment of close to $200 billion, both in terms of public debt or public or private debt or equity. So that's the magnitude of the finance that we're looking at. It's a huge challenge for all the financial institutions to fund this. Okay, and to achieve all these targets, the government of India has done various policy reforms or policy pushes. So a brief of what the government is doing from a policy perspective. We talk of the India's national determined contributions. We have taken a target to reduce emission intensity of GDP by 30 to 35% by 2030, and to achieve 40% of cumulative electric power installed from renewable energy by 2030. And further to the India's NDCs, we have in the recently declared budget or union budget for this financial year, We have some interesting developments like the clean energy cess that's been renamed to the clean environment cess, and more importantly, the cess on the ton of coal, peat or lignite sold that's been increased from 200 rupees to 400 rupees. It's almost double. It's a 100% hike. And when apart from the union budget, in the Indian railway budget, we again saw the railway is the world's largest transportation company. We have seen that they're also moving towards renewable energy. So they released a 10-year document for 50 megawatt solar plant, and they're also planning to commission 130.5 megawatts of windmill plants right across from 2016 to in the next financial year. So given the huge potential for renewable energy and what the government of India is doing in terms of a policy push to promote renewable energy, these are some of the recent developments as far as both I would say from a government perspective of what is happening in the financial institution sector to support for renewable energy. So we start with the Renewable Energy Act. So the central government has released the draft act in July 2015 to address the various issues limiting the growth potential of the renewable energy sector. So looking at bringing all the macroscopic synergies across various national objectives, that's including your National Action Plan for Climate Change, your National Manufacturing Policy, National Mission on Enhanced Energy Efficiency. So that bringing all this together and making one act, it's called the Renewable Energy Act. And then recently we also saw the government coming out with its National Offshore Wind Energy Policy, in which there's actually the promotion of all the offshore wind energy projects in India. So the wind energy blocks which are allocated through the international competitive bidding, and the policy will provide a level playing field to all the investors, beneficiaries which are both domestic and international. And we also, apart from that, we also saw the setting up of ultra mega solar power projects and solar parks, which is under the development of the Solar City Program. The government has recently approved development of almost 56 solar cities, and envisages to set up at least 25 solar parks and ultra mega power projects, targeting 20 gigawatts of solar power within a period of the next 5 years, by 2019. And recently, apart from the government push, we also saw the recent from a regulator end, the Reserve Bank of India, under its priority sector lending, which mandates that almost 40% of any loan book of a bank should be towards should fall in the priority sector lending category. So under that, RBI has recently allowed bank loans up to a limit of almost 15 crores for borrowers for purpose of solar-based power generators, biomass-based power projects, or small windmills to be classified as priority sector lending. And if you talk about the capacity addition under the state central policies, we have this central policies like the Jawaharlal National Solar Mission, which has a goal of installing almost 100 gigawatts by the 2022. And apart from the central policy, we can also see several state distribution companies also come out with individual renewable energy policies, and then invited for bids for development of solar and wind projects. And you see over the last 8 months, over 4,800 megawatts already been tendered out by some of the Indian states. And one, I'm sure most of my Indian audience realize that one of the biggest challenges in the Indian sector is the financial health of the distribution companies, that's called the DISCOMs. So to ease the DISCOM's financial pain, recently government has come up with a scheme called the Ujjwal DISCOM Assurance Yojana, that's the UDAY, which provides for the financial turnaround and the revival of DISCOMs, which is a very key critical component if you're looking at financing the DISCOMs in their current health. So with this as the overview of the support for renewable energies, what are the key challenges that we look at in terms of for renewable energy funding? One is the shortage of available financing, both from a public and a private sector. The other one is generally the short tenure loans which the financial institutions prefer compared to the long tenure capital which is required for the renewable energy given the long gestation period of a project. And also if you're looking at any foreign currency or external credit lines, there's always the risk of the currency devaluation and also the high cost of debt for the individual power producers. So given these challenges, the existing challenges for renewable energy funding, we can look at the various innovative structures of the scheme that are available for clean energy deployment. So I've broadly classified them under four buckets. So we'll go one after one. The first one is the entire whole concept of green bonds, which Jeff has already mentioned, as some of the green banks are doing that. So green bonds are nothing but innovative financial instruments where basically the proceeds will be exclusively applied for financing or refinancing for existing or eligible yield power projects. And the broad scenario of the green bonds can be classified as into four categories. As per that, we are following the green bond principles of the International Capital Markets Association, ICMA. We have various other statutory things like even the Clean Bond Initiative, CBI. So as far as ICMA is concerned, the green bonds can be classified into 4 different categories. One is the green use of proceeds bond, the green use of proceeds revenue bond, green securitized bond, and green project bond. The basic underlying difference among all the 4 types of bonds is how is actually the money that's been raised from a bond, how is it being utilized? Is it a recourse, non-recourse? Is it any securitized collateral, or is it tied to the cash flow of the project? So based on these differences, the bonds can be classified into 4 categories. If you see in the global scenario, like we have the World Bank and the IFCs, I have Rajesh as one of the other co-panelists here. So with the World Bank and the IFCs are the pioneers in issuing the green bonds, and the total cumulative global issuance till now, as of now, has surpassed close to 100 billion US dollars. And if you see the Indian scenario for the green bonds, Yes Bank was the first Indian institution to come out with a green bond. Till now, we've issued close to 1,315 crores of green bonds, one with the private placement with IFC. And immediately this happened in last Feb 2015. And following the Yes Bank's green bond, we saw other institutions like Exim Bank, IDBI Bank, and also CLP. They have also followed suit, and subsequently now the whole market has been opened up for the green bonds from an Indian investor perspective. And then the next type of financial instrument that we're looking at is a yield co. So yield cos are a very different kind of a new, I can say a new type of a companies that are coming up in the renewable energy space. Whereas basically a yield co is nothing but a dividend growth oriented public company in which they bundle all the renewable or the long-term operating assets into a separate company. So what happens is when you tie up under a yield co, the complete risk of the project is taken care of. So I mean the project erection cost or whatever is it, the initial risk which typically from a financial institution perspective, the major part of the risk of a renewable energy project is in its erection phase, because once it's erected, it's mostly the operating phase is probably low risk. So from a financial institution structuring perspective, a yield co is a very good investment in terms of the operational risk is taken care of, and just all the operating assets they're bundled into one single company, and then they are listed and they're looking for investments. So if you see, and there's a very recent scenario that we can see over in the last few years when the yield cos have come up. And most of the yield cos are launched in 2013 and based on wind assets. So recently I was reading yesterday that even the Indian government is looking at such kind of a scenario at the policy level to develop yield cos in India, because as of yet we don't have any yield cos. There are currently 8 yield cos in the US and 6 in the UK and 4 in the Canada and 1 in Spain. So I'm glad to say that from Indian perspective, the government is thinking of the whole yield co perspective in terms of bringing in finance to the structures. The third one is also again talked by Jeff from what a green bank can do in terms of credit enhancement schemes. So credit enhancement scheme is nothing but where you have an underlying bank that actually gives a sort of a guarantee or sovereign guarantee to the underlying bond. So if I take the case of the case study 2, wherein we have seen that the Asian Development Bank had recently backed the issuance of the first climate bond issue. So in which the ADB had given credit enhancement for the renewable AP renewables to the tune of close to guarantee of 75% of the principal and the interest on the bond. So what you have is when you have players like the Asian Development Bank or the IFCs, which can actually credit enhance a particular bond of an individual power producer, which will make all the more attractive for the private investors to come in because the risk is partially taken care of. So this also makes sure that the capital is given at a slightly cheaper cost to the individual power producers, making the total energy cost more viable for them, so that they can offtake it to the grid. So even in the case of in India also, we have recently done with the Hindustan Power and Renew Power, they have raised close to 3 and 451 crores. Wherein answer that Yes Bank and IDFC also played our parts in underwriting the bond to a certain extent. So that's the other type of financial institution of credit enhancement schemes. And the fourth one is the infrastructure debt funds. When the infrastructure debt funds, the whole idea of IDFs is to provide low-cost, long-term refinance to projects in the renewable energy sector. The idea is to raise majority of the funds through insurance and pension funds for investors, so that the total cost of the funding will be quite low in this case. And if you see, recently I can say the example of the Indian Infrastructure Finance IIFL, they have launched the infra debt fund that's announced in May 2015 and they plan to raise 1,000 crores, and if I'm not wrong, they've already closed this fund, and then I'm looking at the deployment of this 1,000 crores into low cost and energy schemes, especially in the renewable energy, solar and wind. So that's something that I can probably say that it's happening in the Indian space, both from a policy perspective and from a financial institutions perspective. What is that everybody is doing to promote renewable energy. And it's a very brief overview of what at the Yes Bank we are doing in terms of renewable energy. So broadly divided into three categories. So one is on the research and advocacy. So we partner with different organizations like WRI, India GHG Program, and come up with our own knowledge reports, because we feel that in India there's a lot of lack of knowledge as far as the whole renewable energy sector is concerned. So we partner with the Ministry of New and Renewable Energy and come up with relevant knowledge reports, both from financial institution perspective and also from an individual power player perspective, like where is the project risk, how can they give a handle, what are the different kinds of innovative financial structures that we can look at. And all these reports are available in the public domain on the Yes Bank website. The other one is we look at, as a bank, we're very aggressive in the investments for environmental outcomes. So we've invested in some of the world's largest solar power project. We're talking of till last year, the Wellspun Neemuch was the world's largest solar project of 151 megawatts. And this year we have participated in the one more. This actually topped last year in terms of the debt funding of close to 280 megawatt wind power project in Gujarat. So as a bank, we understand the financial risk of a particular project, wind or from a solar perspective, and we're there. If we're talking the third bucket is about facilitating responsible investments, wherein we take a very aggressive role in facilitating responsible investments, where we believe that as a bank, we play the role of a catalyst in terms of promoting investments in the renewable energy space. So we have developed the first voluntary responsible financing guidelines for the banking sector, along with the Indian Banking Association and GIZ. And as I also mentioned, we have raised India's first green bond. That's for close to 100 crores, and then we followed it up with a 50 million with IFC. And recently we also signed a MOU with the London Stock Exchange on the bond and equity issuance. And we're also the first bank to have adopted an environmental social policy, which looks at screening environmental social waste. And also something interesting is happening in the international phase is the whole concept of the Green Climate Fund. The Green Climate Fund, I think, comes out of the COP17, and recently in the COP21 also we talked about the Green Climate Fund. It's an international sovereign fund. It's available to deploy public capital through the private entities in various developing countries. So Yes Bank is one of the national implementing entities for the Green Climate Fund. We recently got the accreditation from the Minister of Environment, Forest and Climate Change. So by accessing this fund, we are looking at various innovative projects which otherwise a typically a financial institution would not think of, given the risk profile. So we're trying to access this Green Climate Fund and share the risk with the GCF and looking at innovative projects in India. And just to sum up all this, recently at the COP21, we have taken a target of funding 5 billion towards climate action by 2020. So broadly, the 5 billion target is broken down with a target of funding 5,000 megawatts of clean energy, gradually increasing in percentage of renewable energy in our portfolio, touching 100 million lives to safe and clean drinking water, and offsetting the carbon emissions with bank's operations. Having all said, I'm sure all of you have heard Jeff speak and he speak on the whole renewable energy, the importance of renewable energy and low carbon growth that we have to do. I just want to end my presentation with two options. We have two options at the end of the whole thing. So one option is we just go ahead with this, promote clean energy and bring sustainability into our core business so that at the end of the day we create a better world. So option one is yes, okay, we might create a better world, but what if all the climate change, all this is a hoax? Otherwise we're left with option two. That's where I like to end that. We would have done all the beautiful things, but somewhere down the line we would have left nothing for our future kids. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Srinath. That was wonderful presentation and a wonderful ending as well. What I would like to do now is I would like to invite our panelists for their initial remarks and if they have any questions for our speakers, our presenters. So we have 6 panelists. First one is Mr. Arunava Mukherjee, Senior Vice President for Tata Cleantech Capital. We have Mr. Naresh Patil, Head of Corporate Sustainability Cell from Mahindra Group. We have Vinay Deotar, who is Director for Cleantech Solutions. We have Ajay Verma from ISTSL India SME Technology Services Limited. We have Rajesh Miglani, Senior Climate Change Expert for IFC. And we have Sudhir Yadlin, CFO for Mahindra Steel. So I would like to invite Mr. Arunava Mukherjee for his initial remarks. And sir, would request you to keep your initial remarks to 4 to 5 minutes. And if you have any questions for the presenters, do let us know.
Thank you for giving us this opportunity. I represent Tata Clean Tech Capital, which is a joint venture of Tata's and IFC. And as you know, Tata's historically we have had a commitment towards sustainability long before such such measures become more commonplace. So essentially, to give you a background, this company came out of the work on climate change we've been doing in the Tata Group since 2008. And we felt that this was time to also, we always said that climate change was not a threat, it's also an opportunity. And we thought this was a good way of demonstrating that to the business community as a whole. Yeah. So this company started in 2013, and after almost about 3 years of operations, we have seen rapid growth, and this is a profitable enterprise, and which in a way should be very encouraging to investors who are getting into the different elements of the clean energy or the sustainability chain. What we see going forward, of course, is the rapid growth in the solar sector in India. As investors, and also coming from a group which has a very strong technical background, there's the obvious opportunity, but we also see there are certain threats. For example, we are also closely working with the National Renewable Energy Laboratory in the US at IIT Bombay on a program which looks at the performance of the solar installations from 2010. And some of the results are a bit alarming from an investor viewpoint. So, as a colleague from Yes Bank said, we do need to have a lot of advocacy around this sector also. Although it may seem very simple, but the fact remains that especially like when you're looking at solar, you are essentially dealing with a piece of semiconductor, and it does need some specialized handling. So, and then from our customer viewpoint, of course, they're looking for lower cost of financing, and as Tata Clean Tech, we're trying to access more and more. We're trying to access the sources of capital, and we of course look at the green bank such a structure very closely. Typically in India, we have had IREDA, which I think in a way was sort of set up to function as a green bank. So it would be interesting to know from the perspectives of Jeff whether they've looked at IREDA and whether such an institution can sort of in a way transform itself with some minimum effort to a green bank, and that would probably help institutions like Tata Clean Tech to service these customers. And lastly, on the technology front, just said that all technology problems have been solved, but we often run into the situation where we thought that if we had cheap storage, that would probably also help in facilitating the growth of renewables in the merchant industry. So I think we'll stop there. Thank you again for this opportunity.
Thank you so much, Mr. Ranav Mukherjee. Jeff, there was a question for you. Were you able to get the question?
Yeah, about the role of IREDA.
Yeah.
Yeah, a very good question. I might defer the answer a little bit to say that actually the primary reason I'm going to Delhi in April is we've set up a whole day kind of conference with IREDA and MNRE to explore that exact question. So we certainly understand that IREDA is like a really natural space to talk about the idea of a green bank. I would say, one attribute of how I think the typical green bank model differs a little bit from what IREDA is right now is that typically green banks are they're not part of the financial system per se. The name bank is frankly a really confusing misnomer. It is more like a fund where public capital is put into the fund, but it doesn't have a cost of capital. For instance, the UK Green Bank or the Australian Green Bank are given a budget allocation from the national government on an annual basis, but that money is added to their balance sheet, but they don't have to pay it back. So there is no, I mean, they obviously are, they're providing loans and investing with interest rates because they have to cover the risk and cover the costs, but they themselves don't have to turn around and pay back the central government based on the government's cost of capital. And one of IRETA's challenges is that it is very much part of the financial system, and therefore its interest rates that it can offer, which I believe are north of 10%, they're in double digits, is impacted by the nation's overall cost of capital. So I'm curious to understand in deeper conversations with IRETA ways in which they might be able to get more flexibility in how they use their dollars.
Sure. I think we would be happy to take up similar discussions offline. And now I would like to go to Rajesh Miglani, who is Senior Climate Change Expert with the IFC and also the focal point for IFC in India. Rajesh, as Srinath mentioned, that World Bank and IFC have been the pioneer for the green bonds across the world, and you are also interacting with the multiple organizations in India to take up the clean energy projects. What are your remarks about the presentations and the structure of the green bonds presented by both Jeff and Srinath, and how do you see businesses are responding to such structures?
Thank you, Chirag. This is Rajesh Miglani, and for those of you not familiar with IFC, we are the world's largest development financial institution in the private sector space. Part of World Bank Group. Climate is one of our strategic priority, and in fact in the last 5 years we have invested approximately around $1.5 billion in climate. Climate to us is renewable energy, energy efficiency, and other climate smart investments. So I think they made great presentations. Green Bank and Srinath talked about the green bond and other innovative structures. I think the challenge which Indian companies are facing, no doubt, is about low cost of financing. We have Green Climate Fund, which we have been hearing about, but I think when it will be mobilized is the question. And I personally feel it is quite complicated. So I have spoken with the Green Bank in UK also. They are trying to look into Indian market, but mainly equity investments based on my interaction with the person who's in charge of the Green Bank in UK. And IFC, our objective is not only scaling up our investment in the climate space, but also to catalyze the investments, right? Be it through, Yes Bank, or be it through creating Tata Clean Tech type of NBFCs. And we are very open to it. In fact, our World Bank president announced after this Paris that World Bank will be scaling up our investments to 28% by 2020. In India, in fact, we are already at 30% of what we do. And climate is kind of a mainstream. So any investment which we talk about, even in our concept review meetings or investment review meeting, we have full rights to talk about the risk and opportunities, So I think this is how we differentiate from other FIs. So we are kind of a mainstream and not part of any outside group, who's just giving advice. So essentially, we are kind of a mainstream, and this is something we would like every financial institution to to go for. Announced target. Yes Bank has announced target of $5 billion, which is incredible. To be very frank, in IFC in India, we in the last 5 years have just done $1.5 billion, but our objective is to catalyze investment, to mobilize investment. That is our objective. So yes, we have been in touch with Indian companies, those who are primarily coming to us for the low cost of financing, then be it the credit enhancement structure. Yes, we have been trying to deploy these kind of structures also. Green bond, as Srinath said, we are the leaders worldwide. We have issued more than $4 billion of green bond. So we are again in touch with Indian companies to help them in raising bonds. So we can subscribe it, or we can issue green bonds, to make the financing cheaper. I think if the cost of financing in India could be minimized, say from 11% to 6%, then we don't need any subsidies. So this is a challenge, I would say. Also, if we want to scale up our climate activities, we need to to do big projects. Big projects means I'll give you example of energy efficiency, what ESL is trying to do. Yeah. So I think 2-3 years ago, the revenues were nothing. They were able to raise additional equity. After the blessing of Prime Minister Modi, now they're talking of $1 billion energy efficiency. So for example, they're in touch with multilateral institutions, World Bank, for raising 1 billion debt for energy efficiencies. Who would have thought this kind of a thing? And this happened when they were able to deploy, LEDs in a mass scale basis. Likewise, on the clean energy side, Ultra Mega, will be able to lower down the cost of the tariff. IFC is partnering with the Madhya Pradesh government to structure and implement 750 megawatt Ultra Mega Solar, and we are the transaction advisor. So as you may be knowing, IFC, we do investment, we do advisory. So this is on the advisory part. So I think the need of an R is to now go beyond the pilots and to think big, like clean energy, as I said, Ultra Mega on energy efficiency, $1 billion line of credits. Also, I think most of the speakers have talked about clean energy, which is, I think the banks, they understand. But I think we need to unlock energy efficiency space also, which is pretty big, approximately $28 billion, which we need to unlock. And we need to draw attention of financial institutions to this space also. We have a success now, which is ESL, one of the public sector super ESCO, and we need to create 10 such super ESCOs in the private sector space. China is very successful. We have 3,500 ESCOs in China. We don't have, more than 5 or 10 and ESCOs in India, and that too with a poor balance sheet. So it is not about clean energy, it is about energy efficiency and other climate smart investments. Even I would say green buildings, which is really picking up. We have hardly any penetration, 2.5%, and affordable housing is something which is, in big demand, and I feel green should be incorporated in the affordable housing. We need to construct 3 million houses, affordable houses, in the next 5-10 years. And so the regulators, the financial institutions, the stakeholders should be putting pressure to do green. Banks like Yes Bank or other financial institution should make it mandatory that if any construction financing is involved, that they will be doing green. So in a nutshell, in India we have immense potential, not only on clean energy but on multiple areas. We have penetration sub 10%, green building 2.5%, irrigation less than 5%, LED less than 3%, renewables less than 10%. So immense potential, and as Jeffrey said, green banks type of institutions would be very critical for our country. Role of financial institutions would be very critical. Innovative structures would be very critical, and in all states, not only in clean energy but in all states. So I think let me take a pause and then I can take a question. What do you think? Thank you.
Thank you so much, Rajesh. Very pertinent points. And since you spoke about the energy efficiency, we have Ajay Verma with us from India SME Technology Services Limited, who is an technological arm of SIDBI and have been working on energy efficiency in the SME sector itself only. Ajay, if you're online, can you unmute yourself and share your remarks on your end-to-end energy efficiency project for the SMEs?
Yeah, right. Good morning, all. I'm audible to all?
Yes, clear.
Right. Thank you, Chirag, for inviting me. Good morning to all. Actually, we are a company, India SME Technology Services Limited, is a subsidiary of 5 banks. One of the leading banks who are working in the small scale sectors, like SIDBI, Small Industry Development of India. As Rajesh correctly told us that there is a very huge opportunity in energy efficiency in India. Being a MSME sector banks, we are only targeting MSME sectors, micro small size sectors. And last 3 years, we are implementing one World Bank project in the last 5 clusters, and 11.3 billion project. And the last 3 years, we realized that there is a very huge potential for the energy investments, especially. And banks do not have capacity, and their such kind of projects financing, they do not have a skill to finance those kind of projects. So recently, SAP has also come up with one financing scheme support that we call the password sharing facility, which are supporting the ESCO financing in India. We're trying to develop the banks so that they can come up forward and finance this kind of projects, energy efficiency under ESCO and any other model. And our company, India SME Technology, providing technical support because the MSMEs are not having that kind of capability or inside institutional capacity, so they can understand energy efficiency technology or those measures. So we are trying to provide the technical support on one hand, and also should be providing financial support. SEBI also devised a financing scheme called 4E financing, end-to-end energy efficiency financing. Under this scheme, SEBI financing MSMEs on very subsidized interest rate between 8 to 9%. We are trying to unlock these sectors for the other banks also to come up forward that they can finance these energy efficiency projects. We understand that energy projects having very, may have the very risk associated with them. So that's why banks not coming forward. But looking into this side of the projects and in the billion-dollar investment to be done, maybe the banks can come forward and they can take over this kind of projects. So we are, from our side, we are trying very going to the market, going to the MSMEs, trying to educate them to benefit of them. At the same time, also educating banks also. Thank you, Chirag. That's fine.
Thank you so much, Ajay. Do you have any questions for the speakers?
No, thanks. Thank you.
Great, great. Since we are sorry about that. Since we are talking about the energy efficiency and the SMEs, we have with us Mr. Naresh Patil, who is representing Mahindra Group, who is head corporate sustainability cell of Mahindra Group. And so you have varieties of businesses under the Mahindra Group. You are dealing with a lot of vendors and supply chain. For example, your Mahindra and Mahindra Auto Division has a lot of supply chains which are SMEs, and energy efficiency and working and deploying the clean energy with the supply chain is a big task. What are your remarks? What are the challenges that you see in deploying the clean energy within the Mahindra Group itself and also with the supply chain?
Thank you, Chirag, and thank you very much for giving this opportunity. As Mahindra and Mahindra, as a group, we are a conglomerate having a lot of verticals operating in various businesses. One of them also is clean energy, which we call as sustain. The flagship company is in automotive and farm equipment, that is Mahindra and Mahindra Limited. We also have life spaces, which is in the real estate sector. So why I'm talking about this is there are three different roles that we envisage for ourselves. One is the user of the clean energy. So we are right now in the process of looking at the overall potential. We have around 140 locations, out of which 70 odd locations are manufacturing locations having big manufacturing sheds, and we are looking for the rooftop solar on those. So we are in the process of calculating the actual potential, and probably then we may look at going for the financing, like using the green bonds. We are also in the manufacture or the supply of clean energy in the terms of Mahindra Sustain. So primarily into the solar PVs. So that is one different arm where we are looking at how this manufacture or making of clean power can be augmented. And the third is we have a finance company, the NBFC, which is Mahindra Finance. So we are exploring whether how Yes Bank or other green banks are operating. Is there a possibility that this company can also go into this space of financing the green projects? So these are the different three roles in which we are looking at this whole thing. Now, as regards the SMEs, we have already signed the energy productivity EP 100, which is like by 2030 we will double the energy productivity on the baseline of 2005. So this is for an internal Mahindra group, but we are also extending the energy productivity related initiatives which we have done for so many years to our supply chain. And now the latest establishments where we are operating are green factories, and we are also having the supplier park attached with the green factories. So the supply chain major suppliers are already in the same premises, and we are able to influence them with the initiatives that we are having at our own end. So the next step would be actually looking at their energy potential for renewables. So that would be a second stage, because we are first looking at our own potential. Once we are at the same time with WRI only, I think in the Khopoli area we have explored the possibility of using this clean energy for the supply chain. So like our one company is in manufacture of steel, Mahindra Sanyo Special Steel, and they are leading this initiative taking help of WRI. So these are the various areas in which we are trying to explore and find out which is the best way to go ahead. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Naresh, for your insights into the energy efficiency and the activities and the role that Mahindra Group is playing in this particular field. We also have with us Mr. Sudhir Yagnik, CFO of Mahindra still. Mr. Sudhir, if you're online, can I request you to unmute yourself and share your thoughts about, steel sector, is going through a very tough time at the moment, and how important it is for a steel company like Mahindra Special Steel to look at the clean tech options and also the financing mechanism that enable the competitiveness and bring back the steel sector to the livelihood. Mr. Sudhir?
Yeah, good morning. Am I audible?
Yes, loud and clear.
Okay. So I am representing Mahindra Sanyo Special Steels Limited. This is a joint venture between Mahindra and Sanyo Special Steel and Mitsui, the two Japanese companies. We produce special steel, and as you know, power or electricity is one of the most important element of cost in our operation. Approximately 10 to 12% of our total cost of operation comprises of the cost of electricity. And it is absolutely necessary to be competitive. We look at areas to improve our efficiencies and also bring down the cost of power. The company has taken a lot of initiatives in this direction. We have basically initiated some actions to reduce our fuel and oil consumption. This is in partnership with various technology providers. We have changed the burners where our consumption of furnace oil has come down, and we are using cleaner fuel, which is oxygen, to sustain the operation. And this has given us both environmental benefits and commercial benefits. And at the same time, we have looked at opportunities to reduce the cost of electricity consumption for our steel making operations, where we have been able to cut down our electricity consumption by around 15 to 20%. Going further, we have also installed some solar capacity, rooftop solar capacity, and we are looking at opportunities to scaling up this, and we are in active discussion with the technology providers. It could be Mahindra Sustain, Tata and other companies to increase our capacity on solar energy. One other thing which we are currently examining, where we are in discussion with the technology provider, is to look at opportunity to generate power out of waste heat recovery. As you know, we operate an electric arc furnace, and there are some heat which is we are basically emitting to the atmosphere. We are looking at opportunity to capture this heat, and if this is possible, to use this heat to generate electricity. We have been in discussion with the technology providers, and there is an opportunity to generate capacity of around 3 to 4 megawatt. But the main challenge which we are currently facing is these technology providers are kind of small-time operators who do not have a very strong balance sheet. So they go to market to get finance, and because they do not have a very strong balance sheet, the cost of funds for them is high. And this, what is exactly presented in Jeffrey's presentation, that cost passes to us, and when we convert this cost into tariff, we see a substantial benefit is getting eroded. So as a company, we are looking for some cheaper finance so that this type of projects get implemented, and we are able to get a cost saving, at the same time play a role of corporate citizen to reduce our carbon footprint. So that is exactly what we are looking for. We are currently looking for products where we get cheaper source to capital, so that we are able to put and implement these projects in our company and get the benefits.
Thank you, Mr. Sudhir. Now I would like to move forward to our next panelist, Vinay Devdar, who is Director for Clean Tech Solutions and has been working with industries for providing clean tech solutions and innovative financial instruments. He also worked with ICICI Bank as Assistant Vice President for over a decade, and he, since past few years he has been active in engaging with businesses on providing solutions for the clean tech. Vinay, in your opinion, you've heard the financial institutions, you've heard the businesses. What do you see? What are the challenges do you see, and where do you see the role of Green Bank? How does it help for a company like yours, and how does it support reaching out to the companies who actually needs to access to the finance?
Thank you, Chirag, and good morning to everybody. And I also thank the India GHG Program for inviting me and requesting me to have interactions. First of all, I think it was a very good idea to have Jeff's idea of Green Bank. It's a very, very encouraging move for promoting solar energy. With the Government of India initiative, 100 gigawatt from the solar energy. And I am currently working in the area of rooftop solar, promoting the rooftop solar systems. As you all know, Government of India has also specified that 40 gigawatts would be coming from the green energy. And I've been promoting this to the existing buildings. Basically, what we are looking at two initial options. One is for the new buildings, where the new realty companies and the big sized companies which are interested in that. And second is the existing housing stock, and you have huge existing housing stock. And these are really from small to large buildings which are already installed, and I've been meeting several of them in Mumbai area. And one of the major bottleneck which I feel is in promoting these residential buildings is one is the financing, availability of financing, because none of these societies are they are able to separately raise funding to install energy in that. So right now the only incentive for them is to save energy and save the cost of the power that they are purchasing. And right now, I have analyzed that any 72 stories building, the bill is in the range of 30,000 to 40,000 rupees, because they have the lifts and the water pumps. And I have been promoting them that if they, their actually effective tariff that they are facing is 14 per kilowatt hour. So very huge, very high cost, at least in Maharashtra state. So that is the only incentive at this moment. And I really like this concept of Green Investment Bank which Jeff presented. I am very doubtful with how can we promote this concept, whether Yes Bank or whether these new banks which are promoted these green bonds. Can they have similar structures created in the country where they can fund the investors who would really be interested in not small scale? Of course, one society or one building will not have hardly more than 5 to 10 kilowatts, but if there are possibilities of bundling several buildings. In fact, I am talking to a society which has 80 buildings, and easily the capacity would be about 10 megawatts. And that is a good size for a green bank to look at as a single bundle. And as you know, we have all fiscal benefits available. So those investors can take advantage of those incentives, plus the green bond, green funding which is coming. I think with that we can really bring in a very major revolution in the country in terms of rooftop solar. So I feel that this concept has to be indigenized. Directly I don't think it will be applicable. And I've been through this similar situation. So we have to really think about how systems are operating in our country and adjust the green bond concept or the green investment concept to this, so that we get a large scale. And I'm looking at this 2022 is the first target, and then the second target is 2030 in terms of the NDC. The second issue which I wanted is it only that green energy that we are looking at? There are several other opportunities. And second constraint in society is facing today is water. And you would have heard that a lot of water cuts are all over in the country now. Especially this year, we have very less rainfall. And I'm also promoting a decentralized concept for wastewater treatment, so that this, at least 80% of the water that is being used can be recycled. May not be for drinking or may not be for hygienic purposes, but at least it can take care of 50% of our energy use or water use. So can those green investment or green bonds also look at this, like they're looking at the green buildings also? Can this be diverted to this very important need of the hour? So these are the two questions which I would like to raise with this audience.
Thank you so much, Vinay. Since we are running short of time, can I request Srinath if you would like to respond to Vinay's questions in less than a minute or maybe 2 minutes at max?
Sure. Thanks, Vinay. Vinay, I picked up the right point. Like apart from green energy and all, can you look at water? Yeah, I mean, at least from a Yes Bank perspective, we are looking at that because it's very premature for me to say that we're looking at something like a blue bond or something. But we're looking at raising investment specifically to address the challenges in the water space, because we actually speak, India is one of the most water stressed countries. We know that like it's very well known that water is going to be the next carbon. So from a financial community perspective also, as a bank, we're slowly shifting our focus towards water, and I'll be taking the discussion forward with you.
Thank you so much, Srinath. We've had few questions online by the people who have joined it remotely, but unfortunately we are running out of time. So what we'll do is we'll quickly have to look at those questions and respond to you by a separate email. At this moment, I would like to thank Srinath, Yes Bank, for supporting this webinar, Jeff for joining in remotely. I know it's very late for you, Jeff. Thank you so much for joining and providing all the support. And last but not the least, US Consulate for hosting this particular event. And now I hand it over to Vivek Adia, who heads business engagement for WRI India, to wrap up the webinar.
Thanks, Chirag. I think you've already started the thank yous, but so what I'll do is, before I make my closing remarks again, I would like to acknowledge the support provided by the US Consulate, especially with her opening remarks, and Jayesh, who's sitting there in the corner, but really the backbone behind organizing all of this. So thank you, Jayesh, for all of these things. There was this question, but it's really now coming into like about cultural affairs, meeting clean energy, meeting finance, and we can see the exchange that's happening between Indian business leaders, financial institutions, and US experts there as well. So thank you for making this happen. Jeff, really appreciate your presentation and the high-level points that you have made out, really highlighting the high-level issue about the need for financing to deploy low-carbon solutions and clean energy solutions. Tremendous, huge amount of investments needed, and kind of falling into your words about this is a political and a business problem. So how do you handle this? So whether you move away the subsidies, you made these analogies between the fossil fuel subsidies versus the RE investments needed, quite appropriate. Or there is this business models or financing models that work around and green banks, credit schemes, guarantee schemes, bonds, green bonds, everything makes a lot of difference here into making the business models and the financing models in place. The program, we kind of came in with the India Greenhouse Gas Program, the partnership here, and organized this sort of an interaction within the India Greenhouse Gas Program, which is a WRI, TERI, and CII partnership in India to promote measurement and management of greenhouse gas emissions and scaling up low carbon options here through the private sector participation. We've always been looking to address the issues about climate finance and how do you actually operationalize it. So there has been these number of discussions about the lack of finance that's already available on the ground, but also sometimes we tend to miss out that whatever finance is available, it's also not being deployed to the extent it needs to be. And the NCEF examples come to our mind. It's pertinent. Less than 25% has been deployed apart from 1 or 2 exceptional years. So how do we do this? And we were trying to see if we could create some sort of a steering group or a working group through the India Greenhouse Gas Program, and I would invite all of our partners to support and share their views and see how we could collaboratively get the industry together, get the policymakers together, as well as the financing institutions and experts to come in and work around these areas. Srinath and Yasbank, you've been really party to this, founding members on the program. So thank you again and look forward to your guidance. Arnesh, you've been also running around a lot for this webinar. Great work there. And to all our co-panelists, whether it's Rajesh, Anunavo, Naresh, Vinay, people on the phone there and the web. Thank you for all the pertinent points made during this, and we will follow up with our next steps very soon with some sort of a formal, steering group, working group kind of an arrangement, and try to explore the green banks model, the kind of proposals that Srinath you identified. Maybe answer some of your queries whether Mahindra Finance can do this, whether Aditya Birla can do this, some of those things. But before I end, a huge round of thanks to Chirag, who's kind of led this, conceived this, put in a lot of efforts, and then Pankaja and Akshaya and Karishma to support all of these things. Thank you again, everyone, for joining us. Apologies, we could not take the questions or proceed, in terms of making this more interactive with the audience. So we will send out emails and the list of participants and connect everyone to each other as the next steps. Thank you. Have a nice, good one rest of the day. And Jeff, sleep well.
Thanks so much, everybody. Have a great day.
Thank you.